Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this week's video, I'm going to do a Vancouver real estate market update. We're sitting in the middle of summer and we just got the July sales data out, so we're going to go over some of that. I'm also going to give some tips for buyers and sellers as we move forward towards the fall. Real quick before we get started, if this is your first time to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a real estate agent in the Vancouver area, and I make educational real estate content to help you on your real estate journey. I also make content designed to help you make your move in and around Vancouver. So if that sounds interesting to you, you want to learn more about the market and your specific situation, you can book me for a free call in the Calendly link below. But regardless, if you enjoy these videos, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss next week's video. All right, so like I mentioned off the top, we just received the July sales data, and you can look at this data for both Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley in two different ways, and they will tell you two different stories. So for example, if we look at Metro Vancouver and we look at sales quantity over a year basis, sales quantity was up 29% year over year. On the Fraser Valley side, we're pretty close to 40% year over year for the amount of sales that occurred this year versus July of last year. But what we have to keep in mind is July 2022 was the turning point in the market. That was when the Bank of Canada did their mega raise of 1% on the interest rate last summer. It was right in the middle of July. I recall it vividly, and essentially from that point on, the market hit stagnation, if you will, for the rest of the year. So when we look at the year-over-year sales quantity, we can expect it to be up as it has been. And I expect as we move forward now, we're going to be comparing over a very slow market from last year. We should see that year-over-year sales metric continue to stay high, so it can give it can give a bit of a false look that the market is extremely active out there. Now, when we look at the sales data from a month over month perspective, so when we're comparing to previous month in the Fraser Valley, a pretty significant drop, almost 30% fewer sales. Now, July will always have fewer sales than June. That's seasonality of the real estate market. One of the things that we want to pay close attention to, in my opinion, and likely in your opinion, is real estate prices. What direction are they going? Both Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley, very, very marginal growth. In fact, I would probably say we were flat. Detached homes on both sides were up in price, benchmark price, about 1%, just over 1%, but townhomes and condos a little bit less than that. So fractionally up in price. Again, I would say that we're pretty flat. And I think we're probably seeing a bit of a turning point, at least in the short term, in terms of prices. We're starting to see that plateau in the market. From a sales activity perspective, things have slowed down considerably in the market. Requests for showings on properties have gone down significantly. We are in the dog days of summer, August. It's a big vacation time for families. Not just families, for realtors. There's a lot of people taking time off, spending time with family, doing summer-like things. I put a joke out there on my Instagram is, the job of a real estate agent in the summer, or specifically in August, as we're kind of heading towards that fall market, is, we all have a number of buyer clients that we've been working with, and they all choose to take, that end of July and August off. And, our job as real estate agents is to try to keep that ball moving because, I've been in the market, I've been in the industry now for 8 years, and I can tell you every single September, there's a 1 week period where all those buyers that were on the sideline, they reach out to you at the same time and they say, okay, let's get after it now. Let's beat the rush. Let's get back into the market. And meanwhile, it seems like every buyer across the Lower Mainland has that same strategy of reaching out to their agent in September, and before you know it, that rush has already occurred. Real quickly, before I jump on to the next section of the video, I do want to talk about 10-year sales averages. I have talked about that on this channel, and I truly think that is the best metric to use to really understand where the market is today versus where we historically sit. Now, in terms of the sales average on the Metro Vancouver side, we're about 15% fewer sales, so quantity of sales, than our 10-year average. So you can look at that and you could say, yeah, it's less active in the market. Vancouver real estate, it's slowing down, if you will, over time. But if you look at the total active inventory, and you compare that over the 10-year average, we're also down close to 15%. So you have total inventory down 15% compared to the 10-year average. You have sales quantity down 15% compared to the 10-year average. You could make the case that we're as active as we can be. There's really not a huge change in activity level because there's only so many properties that buyers can be active on. So I think one of the things that we've learned in Vancouver real estate, and I've learned for sure since the pandemic time and where we sit today and all of the things that have happened with the interest rates dropping considerably, now being raised as quickly as they have been, transactions keep happening. Vancouver real estate transactions will always keep happening. It seems you can throw anything you want at this market, and somehow there are enough or more buyers to on the demand side of the equation to gobble up the supply that's on the market. So again, it can't last forever. Obviously, if rates were to continue going forward, there's going to be a breaking point. And I know there are a lot of sellers, and including investors as well, that are thinking, okay, I want to move off of my investment properties. I've done videos on this previously. So there are a lot of people, don't get me wrong, feeling the pinch, but you know, that last thing that they're going to do when household affordability is getting more difficult, the last thing they're going to look at doing is, you know, downsizing the home or doing anything with their property. Because if you're thinking, or if we're thinking, people are going to sell property and move into the rental market, which is even more fierce than the sales market right now, that's just not even an option to people. So it's not as if people who are feeling the pinch or feeling pain, they can just sell their property and go rent, and that's going to be an easy solution. Again, Vancouver real estate, it just continues to transact. You can suggest that has to do with our immigration levels. You can suggest that it has to do with us being one of the top global destinations in the world. There are so many reasons why, you know, no matter what is thrown at the market, you know, activity continues to happen. So again, you know, as we move forward into the fall, I expect sales activity, of course, is going to continue. One of the nice things about the month of August is we don't have a Bank of Canada rate announcement. So we have essentially what you could call a guaranteed pause in the market until the meeting in September. I want to say September 6th. I'll need to double check that, but we have some time here. And the reason why this is a good thing is the Bank of Canada now gets to have more data in front of them before they make a decision, right? The Bank of Canada, they raise interest rates to combat inflation, but if you look at when they've been holding their meetings and when they've actually been making rate decisions, they've been doing that before the inflation data even comes out. So now we're going to have more data in front of them. They're going to have more to look into, to read off of, so they don't make any rash decisions. You know, obviously it depends what happens with that jobs report. Depends what happens, obviously, with CPI inflation. So we're going to be watching that closely. There's, of course, a potential for another raise in September, possibly a pause. I think when we look at the real estate sales data, when the Bank of Canada sees that prices are essentially stabilizing, this should lean them, again, only from a real estate angle, this should lean them towards a pause. All right, so I want to switch gears a little bit, and I have some advice that I want to give for buyers and sellers. I'm going to start with sellers, and I want to talk about what I call first offer syndrome, FOS or FOS, if you will. Now, this happens pretty frequently in the market, and what this is, first offer syndrome, is the inability for some sellers who have listed their property to accept the first offer that gets put in front of them because they feel they can do better and they feel that offer came too quickly. Happens all the time in our market. Myself personally, it's happened several times, including recently, where, you know, as a real estate agent, when we are listing your property, we put a lot of effort into, you know, determining what your sale price is going to be to the best of our ability. Obviously, there can be outliers where someone comes in with a much higher offer than anyone could expect, but we have a reasonable idea of what your home will sell at. And based on that, that's how we are choosing a list price. We want to get the most eyes on the property. And what ends up happening is if your real estate agent is doing a good job or did a good job with that, they're going to bring you an offer on the property very close to your asking price, and they're going to do it quickly. Now, oftentimes what happens is if you bring an offer that's very close to the asking price and you bring it quickly to a seller, some sellers think that there has to be a better offer out there. I'm doing this too quickly. Let's wait a little bit longer. But what they fail to realize is that, most of your action, most of your activity, most of the interest in your property, it comes in the first 2 weeks. And that's why we always say it's so critical to price your home, to have the most amount of eyes on it, to get the most amount of interest right off the bat, because that's going to get you the higher price. So, ultimately what ends up happening, you bring a great offer, you've done your research. If you get, one offer on the property very close to asking price quickly, that means you're priced perfectly. And often what happens to the seller that doesn't accept that offer, they sit around on the market, they're still on the market 3 weeks, a month later, they now come back to the real estate agent and they say, hey, can you replicate that offer? Can you bring it back? We thought we'd get something higher, we haven't gotten anything. Now we can place the call to that other agent, but now the power dynamic has shifted. That buyer may have already moved on, so that's one thing. But number two, if I'm placing the call back to that agent saying, hey, do you want to write another offer? It's not going to be as high. So keep that in mind. Don't succumb to first offer syndrome, because ultimately it does end up costing you time and money. And again, if your real estate agent brings you an offer around the price they said they would in a short period of time, they've done their job and they've done it well. And now lastly, before I end off the video, my suggestion to buyers, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in this video, but look, I understand we all want to take August off. We all want to relax. We all want to enjoy this summer. Right now, where we're seeing kind of inventory levels tick up, especially on the Fraser Valley side, we're seeing sales quantity, drop off overall. It's pretty soft. And like I mentioned, a lot of people, they jump back into the market in September. They start to, get rid of the vacation vibes, and they think, okay, it's time to get back to work. And between September and November is when real estate typically sells. Like the most transactions are going to happen. December slows down quite a bit. So it's a bit of a short window to get into the market for the rest of the year. So what I'm suggesting to my clients, and I'm saying to you, is if you have already been considering buying real estate this year, you've been perhaps attempting to much of the year and decided to take some time off, consider restarting your search a little bit earlier, sometime in August, because that's how you're going to beat the rush. September, there is often a flurry of activity. So have your ducks in a row and try and get out there to view properties now. There's a lot of sellers that are kind of sitting on properties that aren't selling, but it's not necessarily a pricing thing. It just means that they're not having as many eyes on it now. In September, those eyes will be back on the properties and those properties will move. So August, I always say, is a great time to be purchasing, to be putting yourself into the market. If you have any questions, obviously, on how to get into the market, you can reach out to me directly or reach out to your agent. But it's a really good time to move forward, at least have your ducks in a row right now. And if something makes sense to you financially and it's the right property, don't hesitate to make that happen this month. All right, guys, so there you have it. That's this week's video. I hope you learned something. If you did, hit the like button, because what that does is it takes the video and it sends it out to more people so they can also learn from it. And if you enjoy this weekly real estate content, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss next week's video. And lastly, before I sign off, if you're in the Vancouver area and you want to talk about your own real estate situation with me one-on-one, you can book me in the Calendly link below, but you could also just shoot me a text, give me a call, send me an email, whatever's easiest for you. I'd love to chat with you one-on-one, but I want to thank you again for watching this week's video, and I look forward to seeing you next week.